Story 1. Hiking and walking trails. It was terrible the first few times I did it, and I had severe soreness in my feet for days afterward. Now, I can walk 6 miles a day with virtually no pain. Story 2. Growing my own vegetables saves money and tastes better than grocery store produce, especially tomatoes. Story 3. Kayaking. Being that far from civilization is the closest I have ever felt to free and at peace. Story 4. Driving a school bus for a living. I swore it was the one job I would never do. Now I am 5 years in, and as far as jobs go, I find it extremely rewarding and pretty fun. Story 5. Karaoke. Growing up, I thought it looked silly for people to sing songs badly in front of others. Then I moved to Japan for work, and on my first night out, we went to a bar with karaoke. I had some of the most fun I have ever had. Story 6. Basket weaving. I was at a medieval market and a man was giving a demonstration, allowing people to try it. I tried it too and enjoyed it greatly. The repetitive work really helps you unwind and relax your mind. Also, decorative baskets make a nice addition to a gift, but that is not the topic. Story 7. Being openly honest about my feelings, insecurities, and faults in a somewhat humorous, self-deprecating way. I found that when you are open about these things, others almost immediately start agreeing and opening up about the same issues. I learned that I am not nearly as alone as I thought I was, and that most of these feelings are quite common among other people. It is quite liberating. Story 8. Therapy. I was very anti-medication and anti-therapy. I heard people complaining about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression and assumed they were just lazy or using a diagnosis to get attention. Then I started having serious anxiety problems. I struggled through it for 3 years until I almost ran off the road during a random panic attack. I began therapy and started improving after a few months. On the recommendation of my psychiatrist and primary care physicians, I was prescribed medication to use if a panic attack occurs. Just having the medicine as a safety net, coupled with continued therapy, has almost completely eliminated my panic attacks. I am now working on undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression that I had for years but assumed was something everyone dealt with. I never thought I would be here, but I feel much better and have a whole new perspective on other people as well. Story 9. Meditating. I was convinced I could not shut off my brain. It is still a challenge. But just sitting quietly with my thoughts for 10 or 15 minutes really does remind me that whatever is weighing heavily on my mind is not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Story 10. Weightlifting. Who knew taking out my anger on heavy barbells would make me feel excellent, keep my weight low, make me look strong, and give me a place and activity to hang out with my friends that was not a bar? Story 11. I have recently picked up cooking and painting. I did not think I was talented enough to paint, but it turns out I can. I just paint abstract things. Story 12. Being a stay-at-home mom, I never pursued a career path, and I am okay with that. I feel I was made to give my child the best life possible and be as present as I can. My child has special needs, so it is a full-time job, no doubt. But I would not trade it for the world. I was built for this mom life. Story 13. Wearing Crocs. I judged them for a long time, but they are very comfortable. Story 14. Scuba. Who would have thought? It was never on my bucket list, but now it is a passion. Story 15. Observing birds, gardening, and cutting the grass, the 50-something trifecta. Story 16. Reading. I am visually inspired, and I really hated trying to push myself to build up reading stamina growing up. But now I really love reading and learning. I also count audiobooks as reading, but I still do a fair amount of visual reading. Once my eyes get strained or too tired after working all day, audiobooks are really nice to keep going. Story 17. Bowling by myself. One day I went on my day off, and it was actually pretty fun. I told the worker afterwards that it was oddly therapeutic, and he responded with something like, "That's what bowling is all about, kid." Story 18. Going to a theme park alone. I live in the land of theme parks, and I always thought when I saw people by themselves at one, poor thing has no friends. I am extremely extroverted, so going out alone always seemed sad or boring. Then one day my coworker said he would love to get an annual pass to Universal and just go by himself and walk around with headphones. Again, I thought, how sad. But then, one day I was feeling very mopey because it was my deceased brother's birthday, and I decided to go to Animal Kingdom by myself. My brother loved animals more than anything, and he would have loved that park. We were always too poor to go growing up. I did not know if I would cry or how I would feel, and I did not want to subject any of my friends to that. So I went alone. I took headphones. I did cry a little, but I ended up having a really good time. Then I started going to all the parks alone. I would listen to music, read a book, chat with strangers, drink, people watch, and do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to sit and look at tigers for an hour, I did. It was very freeing. As I said, I am a people person, so when I go with my friends, I am always happy doing whatever the group wants to do. I never assert my wants because I am happy if everybody is happy. But going and doing whatever you want is actually amazing. Story 19. Something I thought I would never enjoy is bodyweight exercises and outdoor workouts. I always associated fitness with going to the gym, using machines, and lifting weights. But I discovered how much I enjoy the simplicity and versatility of exercises like push-ups, squats, lunges, and planks. Doing them in a park or even at home feels refreshing, and I do not feel the same dread that sometimes comes with heading to the gym. There is also the joy of getting outside for activities like hiking, biking, or interval training. These activities help build strength and cardiovascular fitness without the confines of a gym. Story 20. I decided not to have children. I never thought I would be childless by choice. Instead, I chose to heal my own inner child and cultivate a strong relationship with my husband. It is a solid decision in this day and age. Story 21. I never thought I would be into gardening, but harvesting my own vegetables is a whole new level of satisfaction. Story 22. Reading and actually trying in school has been nice. It has been motivating to aim to surpass other students' grades on tests. Story 23. Fishing. My wife and I got a pair of fishing rods and reels last month, and I am hooked, pun intended. We are queer women living in a large United States city, so not exactly the usual demographic. Story 24. I grew up in a very religious family and promised myself that I would not engage in self-pleasure. Now, I cannot count how many times a day I do so. Story 25. Dungeons and Dragons. In high school, I thought it was for nerds and that I would be caught dead doing something like that. Now I play every other week with my friend group. Story 26. Going to the movies and restaurant alone. I call it me days and absolutely love every minute of it. Story 27. As a tennis player, I always hated pickleball and sought to never play it because it was just worse tennis. Played with a friend though, it is fun. My apologies, pickleball lovers. Story 28. Cooking meals at home not only allows me to do something enjoyable, but my finances have almost completely recovered. Story 29. Dislike crowds and people. Seems the older I get, the more I like being alone. Story 30. Running. I used to hate it growing up, but I grew to love it in my late 20s. Story 31. Training a puppy has been so much fun and rewarding that I am considering taking courses to get certified. Story 32. Plan a wedding. I had basically given up on ever doing that, and then I slipped and fell in love. It is mutual. Story 33. All these answers are so wholesome. I was just going to say drugs. Story 34. Yard work. I used to watch my parents do it, and they always seemed to take a lot of pride in it. I never wanted to help them because it seemed dirty, boring, and hard. Now that I am an adult with a home I love, I take great pride in keeping the front and backyard looking crisp. It is a great way to get outside, build muscle, and have something beautiful to show for it. Story 35. Smoke weed. I do a little every night for my lupus pain. I never really had an urge to do it until I was seeking some relief. Story 36. Skiing. I am addicted, but they had to drag me out there the first time. Sushi. The same. Story 37. Gardening always seemed boring, and since weed pulling was a task assigned to me constantly as a kid, it seemed even less appealing. But now I find it rewarding and really fun. I feel a lot of pride when I can successfully grow something from seed and watch it grow big and vibrant. I find it great for aiding my self-esteem and anxiety. Plus, it brings lots of wildlife into my yard, which is a big extra bonus and has me looking into growing plants that benefit the wildlife. Story 38. Working out. I honestly thought I would hate it all, but I love it. Story 39. Climbing up a 3-story scaffolding tower. I was always terrified of heights. My college tutor literally stood next to me and coaxed me up there. It was the best fun I have ever had. Story 40. Running. I was always a heavy kid and I had asthma. I struggled with running. Now, as an adult, I enjoy the challenge and benefits very much. I am still not great at it, but I have realized that since there is no coach measuring my times, I can enjoy other aspects of the hobby. Story 41. Waking up early is just as good, if not better, than staying up late. Sure, it might feel good to stay in bed longer, but it feels as if the days last much longer. Story 42. Gardening. I have always been a high-maintenance city person. I moved to the suburbs and turned my yard into a food forest. Story 43. Brussels sprouts. I refused to eat them for 49 years. Then I was at a New Orleans restaurant where they had a steak and eggs dish that included Brussels sprouts roasted and smothered in eggs and sauce. Oh my God, they were good. Story 44. Soldering. Being able to fix electronics for my wife and children is very rewarding. Seeing my children jump for joy when I repair a toy that does not light up or make a sound is wonderful. Story 45. Parenthood. I was strongly child-free because I loved my freedom. I have a baby now, and I want to spend every second with her. Story 46. Dunking myself into the freezing cold pool after being in the hot pool at the volcanic spring spa. Then repeating that a few times, I discovered that it feels amazing. Story 47. Pole dance. I was such a tomboy growing up and had a real problem with the thought of my body existing primarily for men's approval or arousal. It was hard for me to even start wearing makeup, skirts, and dresses in my 20s. But I had heard about the local pole fitness studio and it sounded intriguing. Then I watched the amazing Netflix documentary, Strip Down, Rise Up, which really highlighted that your sexuality and sexiness can be entirely for yourself. Even more mind-blowing, there is a whole realm of pole that is not about becoming a professional stripper. Not that I have anything against people who take that route, but simply about the pure physical and acrobatic challenges. A girlfriend casually mentioned that she wanted to try the introductory class but needed people to come with her, so she wouldn't feel shy. She ended up doing one class, and I have been doing it religiously every single week, plus open studio practices, for about 7 or 8 months now. I can't even believe how satisfying it is to learn each new move. I'm so proud of how strong I'm getting. I'm even, at 40 years old, finally comfortable with the thought that I can be sexy for my own amusement, and that sexiness can come from my strength just as much as it can come from walking around with ones but sticking out. Story 48. Bar work. I swore I would hate it. I got my first bar job at 23, and it was one of my favorite jobs. I would happily own my own bar if I could afford it. Story 49. Surprisingly, knitting is one of my hobbies. I do have some traditional hobbies, but I never thought that I would actually like this one. I learned the basics, and ever since then, it has been a way for me to de-stress. I am not the best, but it makes me happy, and I have been able to make gifts too. Story 50. Reading classic literature is much more rewarding when you read at your own pace instead of rigidly reading it for class and then doing homework about it. Story 51. Dancing. I am very introverted and socially anxious, but I am working on it. Some time ago, I saw shuffle dance on YouTube and thought to myself, I like it. This is what I want to try and may enjoy. I am not there yet, but I am sure at some point I will be. Story 52. Country music, to a limit of course. The old songs and the country bar line dance vibes. Story 53. Mowing the lawn, gardening, watching birds. The 50-something trifecta. Story 54. I got divorced. It wasn't my choice. I had been married for 23 years, and we had 3 children under 14. We never fought. I think he just had a midlife crisis and an affair. He was also having a hard time dealing with the children's adolescent period, which would have passed soon enough. It was devastating. But I met my new husband not too long after, and I am much happier. Since I didn't have a bad marriage the first time, it was easier going into a new relationship. The intimacy is much better. Story 55. Snowboarding. I always thought it was cool when I watched the Winter Olympics, but I never really considered doing it myself. My brother got me to try about 5 years ago. I struggled at first, but I quickly got the hang of it. Now I always look forward to winter and improving my riding. Story 56. Working out and running. I hated it when it was required, but now that I do it for myself, it is much more enjoyable. Story 57. Living in the suburbs, I thought I would be bored and become boring. My social life is as active as it has ever been. I left a job in town and reduced my time in traffic significantly. Crime is much less frequent and less serious. I may not have the most popular restaurants nearby and have to drive into the city for concerts, but I have plenty of other events and interesting people all around me. Story 58. Building Legos. Received a set for Christmas, and over the course of almost a year, built up a collection. Story 59. Thrifting. I now thrift pretty much all my home decor, clothes, and some of my shoes. It's not that I looked down on thrifting before, but I also thought the stuff in most thrift stores was garbage. Now that I thrift on a somewhat frequent basis, I absolutely love it. I found so many cool and unique pieces, some that are extremely valuable. It's like hunting for treasure, and I really enjoy it. Even if I were a millionaire, I'd still thrift for cool, rare vintage pieces. Story 60. Kayaking. I went a couple of weekends ago for the first time and loved it. Story 61. Sit at a library and read with a composition notebook to take notes. I have found a lifelong passion. Story 62. Gardening. When I was a kid, I absolutely hated being outside. My mother would ask me to water her plants, which gave me severe anxiety. Now it takes my anxiety away. Story 63. I started playing chess. I began when we were reined in on vacation, and it is addicting and fun. I really enjoy the critical thinking involved and figuring out new strategies. Story 64. Naps. When I was a kid, my dad would constantly beg or bribe me to take a nap with him, but my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder brain could not do that no matter what he offered. I wish he was here today so I could take a nap with him. Story 65. Anime. Started watching a couple of years ago, and now I've filled up my room with manga and other merchandise while trying to ignore the sorry state of my wallet. Manga is expensive. It also kept up my motivation for learning Japanese, which I started before I began watching anime. Story 66. Clubbing. I was a loner growing up and played video games all night. I met some people who got me out of my comfort zone, and now I love going out in my free time. Story 67. Gave up smoking. After 35 years, I stopped being an addict. It took a health scare to wake me up. I want to be there for my daughter, not as a burden riddled with health issues. It has been more than 4 months. Story 68. Watching animation. My 12-year-old self really found it embarrassing. Story 69. If you told 13-year-old me that I would be as into National Basketball Association basketball as I am at 30, I would have laughed in your face. Story 70. Cold water swimming. I hate being cold, but there is something about getting in the water and being in that environment that is very addictive. Story 71. Dungeons and Dragons. It seemed like it would be too complicated for me, but it is pretty simple. I also feel like it helps with my creativity and problem solving. Story 72. Jiu-jitsu is seriously so much fun and a great workout. Story 73. I see people mention smoking, but what about activities like going on walks or running? Story 74. Yoga, including hot yoga, has done wonders for my flexibility as a bodybuilder. Story 75. Honestly, working on a car, modifying it, and overall mechanical work. The only reason I don't do it as a profession is that it doesn't pay enough to make a living unless you reach the top percentile. Can I work up to that point? Yes, obviously, like those people did, but sadly, I'm not in a position to do that. Story 76. Football or soccer, I always hated it and thought it was stupid. But then my friends began playing it, so I tried and I found it fun. Now I play it nearly every day with my friends. Story 77. Sunrise yoga. There is something so satisfying and grounding about doing this mindful practice to start the day. Story 78. Drinking alcohol. I was 27 years old and had never touched it except for the one time I drank my first beer when I turned 18. I hated it. Then, by the end of 2022, I started drinking, and now even though I enjoy it, it has probably already turned into an addiction. Story 79. Cold plunging. I never wanted to do it. Now I am obsessed. Story 80. Exercising used to feel like a chore. Now that I am in my late 50s, I appreciate the reasons behind it and how it makes me feel better. It is not just about fitting into cute clothing. Story 81. Ceramics. I had always hated the feeling of dirty hands, but after taking a ceramics class on a whim in high school, everything changed. It is so therapeutic to make sculptures of whatever you want with your hands and see the finished product. Story 82. Group therapy is enjoyable because I understand more about my mental health and I am in a room with people who understand and can relate. The term group therapy always gave me discomfort. Story 83. Coca-Cola. Thankfully, it is a thing of the past, but when I was using it, it was remarkably enjoyable. Story 84. I went on a roller coaster this summer and I loved it. There were no loops or anything, but I totally understand it now. Story 85. Rock climbing. I thought it was for very athletic, very outdoorsy, adventurous people who enjoy hiking all the time. Turns out you can do it however you want. There are easier routes. You can climb indoors at a gym or outdoors in many places where I live. It is very fun, and I am much more capable than I ever thought. I love it. Story 86. Hot yoga. You feel like a new person when you finally shower after sweating out all the toxins. Story 87. Paddleboarding honestly scared me at first, but now it is a go-to hangout idea with friends. Story 88. Dancing. I never thought of myself as someone who would enjoy such an activity, but I took salsa lessons recently on a whim, and it was much more fun than I expected. Story 89. Golf. My husband wouldn't stop talking about it until I finally said, "Take me." Now we go every other weekend together as part of our date routine. Story 90. Cutting an appropriately sized hole in a frozen Minnesota lake during a January cabin weekend. Place an adequately sized ladder. Get the Finnish hot sauna going. In the buff, with steam glowing off, we run and jump into 34-degree Fahrenheit water. Then return to the sauna for rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5 maximum. Story 91. Marriage. I never thought I would get married, but I am the happiest I have ever been. Story 92. I started running recently. I am not very good at it, so I walk most of the way. However, I look forward to walking and running all day long. Story 93. Crocheting. I was never artistically inclined growing up in any sense, and I detested most crafts because they required a lot of creativity that I just did not have. I was drawn to how cute woobles were, was gifted a few kits by my partner, and now love crocheting as a decompression activity. Story 94. Childcare. I love working at my preschool more than anything else in this world. Story 95. I would tell everyone in high school that I did not know what I wanted to be. I just knew I was not going to be a teacher. Fast forward and I am starting my 5th year as a special education teacher. I love going to work and love my students. Some days are hard, but overall I would not trade it for any other career. It is enjoyable to me. Story 96. Melee live-action role-playing. I thought it looked uninteresting, then I played it, enjoyed it so much that I redesigned the entire game and ran it at public events for 20 years. Story 97. Papier-mâché and diamond painting are both very fun activities. Story 98. Escape rooms always struck me as gimmicky and not very fun until I did one with some friends and enjoyed it immensely. Story 99. Gardening, landscaping, fishing, smoking meats, and smoking cigars. I think I am just getting old. Story 100. Parasailing. Heights are not my favorite thing, so I was apprehensive, but once up in the sky, it was amazing. I would absolutely go again. Story 101. Jogging. Overweight, stressed out baby boomer with high cholesterol, blood pressure, thyroid issues, and more. Retired in 2020. Started walking. then jogging daily, corrected diet, and voila, no medications, Superman. Story 102. Coin collecting is very interesting. Instead of having coins that simply say 25 cents, we put art on our coins. It is also a hobby that retains its value, unlike my Jeep. Story 103. Reformer Pilates. I am a 48-year-old male, and it seemed to me like water aerobics for affluent women. However, my back feels better than it has in a decade. I am starting to have abdominal muscles, and I really look forward to it. Story 104. Golf. I always thought it was stupid. I really enjoy being outside, getting exercise and socializing. Story 105. Sports. I have always tried hard in my physical education classes, but the problem is that I am really not athletic at all. I feel shame whenever I have to play a sport or do any kind of exercise in front of people. Recently, I started playing badminton. Although I am horrible at it, people have been really friendly, so I have learned a lot from other players. Story 106. Parasailing. A few weeks ago, my girlfriend planned a surprise birthday getaway, and I found out what it was about halfway there. After she told me, I was scared inside, but I pushed the fear down and clicked in for a 1,000-foot tow around Newport Bay. It was amazing and one of the most calm and relaxing experiences I have ever had. I even got dunked in the water. I highly recommend it and cannot wait to do it again somewhere else. Story 107. Drugs. Honestly, it's like candy but with special effects. You just have to be smart about it and moderate yourself so you don't get addicted and avoid the dangerous ones. Honestly, great stuff. Story 108. Starting my day with walking. I have been a hermit all my life. It feels refreshing to be out first thing in the morning enjoying the scenery and sunshine, not to mention that it is good for you. Story 109. Doing my makeup is like painting on my face, and I love how there are multiple types of looks that I can create. Story 110. Learning how to crochet. I taught myself using YouTube videos, and now I am making blankets for my children and family members just like my late great-grandmother did. It makes me feel connected to her. Story 111. I never thought I would enjoy gardening, but it is surprisingly relaxing and rewarding to see things grow and thrive. How about you? Story 112. Yard work, specifically mowing my lawn. I hated yard work growing up. Fast forward 20 years. I just bought my first house in March and discovered I love it. I put on a good podcast and get to work. I have found stuff to do that really did not even need it just for the sake of prolonging it. Story 113. I am a girl. My friend tried to get me into metal screaming. First, I was like, no way, but now I absolutely love it. I am amazed at all the different distorted voices I can produce. Story 114. Clean my room frequently. When I had depression, I felt too lazy to do anything. I just wanted to lie flat in bed forever. At that time, my room was a mess, and my mental health was worsening. One day, I decided to change. I started with small tasks like cleaning my bed and my desk. Then I continued with my room, then my house, and I felt better. I believe our environment has a strong impact on our mind. They are closely connected. Keeping your house clean can help improve your mental health. Story 115. Rhythm games. I thought they were not my thing, but then I downloaded Project Sekai while I was bored on a road trip, and now I am obsessed with it. Story 116. Waking up early and having a morning routine is important. I always thought it was something uncool to do, but now I am pretty hooked on it. Story 117. Writing my master's thesis. Doing such a large task over multiple semesters was something I had never really done before. I thought I would dislike it, but after I began writing, I found I enjoyed it a lot more than my usual coursework. The field I am studying, mathematics, does not allow much creative leeway in classes, but I get to express my mathematical creativity quite a bit in my thesis. Writing it has been the most fun I have had with school in a while. Story 118. Doing my own manicure. My boyfriend encouraged me by getting me the light, a few colors, top coats, and more. I started doing it because it was expensive and we were broke. Now we are in a much better place because he works so hard, and I love doing my own nails. I get to shape and design them however I want. I don't have to pay someone else. I get to keep all my favorite colors. I don't have to smile and say, I love them. When someone doesn't share the same artistic vision that I do, the pros heavily outweigh the cons. And now I look forward to doing my nails every 2 weeks. It is so fun. Story 119. Peaches and olives, but not together. I hated these things as a child, but now wow. Story 120. Plants. I have always liked the outdoors, especially waterfalls, canyons, and lookouts. I never paid attention to individual plants, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, we began hiking more frequently. We were influenced by a friend who was converting their yard to native plants. While hiking, I started noticing those same plants, and now they are in my yard as long as they can handle full sun. My perspective has changed completely. I now enthusiastically talk about native plants and stop every 5 feet on a hike just to greet a friend. It may sound unusual, but it is not far from the truth. Story 121. Waking up early. The older I get, the earlier I wake up. At some point, it becomes the norm to be up no later than 7 a.m. I never thought I would be a morning person. I love it. Story 122. Giving up gluten has greatly improved my gut health and energy levels. I am very grateful to no longer be sick. I do not even miss croissants or fresh bread with cheese. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.